Shelly Diaz from School Library Journal, and I'm here with Isabel Quintero. I'm the reviews manager at SLJ and the editor of SLJ Teen. And we're here to talk about Ugly Cat and Pablo, published by Scholastic, and Isabel Quintero. So, Isabel, can you tell us what Ugly Cat and Pablo is about and what inspired you to write it?
Sure. So Ugly Cat and Pablo is about two very unlikely friends, an ugly cat and Pablo, a small mouse. And they're Chicanos, and they live in the Mariposa Valley neighborhood. And they like food, they like getting into mischief together. And so, like, the first book is about paletas, right? So paletas were a big thing when I was a kid. The paletero would come by, and you'd hear the bell, and you're like, sweet, Mom, I need $1 to go get a couple paletas. So now there's like $1 per paleta, so times have changed. Yeah. But, that's what the first book is about. They go to the park through the food fair, and they see a paletero, and they want a paleta, and they're trying to figure out how to get a paleta, and then the plan goes very bad very quickly, and so it turns into a rescue mission rather than a paleta mission. So that's the first book, and what inspired me to write the series is, so I worked as an elementary school library tech for about 6 years, and I found that kids really gravitated towards books about humor and just like funny things, but there were hardly any chapter books that featured Latino protagonists in any way. So obviously Ugly Cat and Pablo are animals, but they're still Chicanos or Chicano animals, right? They speak Spanglish, they speak Spanish in the book, and so it was important to me to have kids relate to that. So in this book, like, there is a huge population of kids who are going to be like, paletas, I love paletas. And so I'm really excited about being able to do that with my work with those books. And so that's what inspired. Like, I do read alouds, and the books that kids love the most were the humor books, like the funny books. And I started writing Ugly Cat and Pablo. And
well, we're glad that you did.
Oh, thank you.
And so what are some of your favorite middle grade authors, people of color or from a marginalized culture?
So some of my favorite books, I love Elijah Buxton by Christopher Paul Curtis. That book had me cracking up. It has like everything. It has like suspense and murder, and it's just funny and so well written. Dead End and Norval is probably one of my favorite books that I've read in the last few years. It's also a dark comedy, and it's just not just because it's a middle grade book, but it's just a well-written book. And I recommend that whenever someone asks me, like, oh, do you have a book you recommend? I'm always like, Dead End and Norval. But that's a kid book. Yes, I know, but it's like one of the best books I've read in a while. I also like Esperanza Rising. That was one of the first books by middle grade books by a writer of color that I read. Becoming Naomi León. I love Becoming Naomi. It's also by MUÑOZ, but Becoming Naomi León is just so good, and it makes me angry at times, and I love the grandma in that book, and so it's just a really good book. And then I'll have to say a picture book by Duncan Tonantui, Pancho Rabbit and the Coyote, so A Migrant's Tale. It's one of my favorite books, picture books, and I love his artwork, but also I think it's really like an important allegory to read, especially right now. And so, yeah, I think those are probably my top 5.
Yeah. And even though that's a picture book, I think that really could be read at so many levels.
Yeah, definitely. That it is a picture book, but I think it should be read at so many different levels. I mean, you could use that in a college class to teach allegory, and the topics are so important in there, that the issues in there, you can have such a important dialogue in class, because sometimes I teach college English, and so something like that I could use in my class and have a dialogue with my students about, okay, like, why would he choose this medium, like this mode to write about this, as opposed to just saying exactly what it means. Why is allegory important? So yes. Yeah.
So what's your favorite, and I know this is a hard question, but what's your favorite book by a person of color or marginalized culture?
This is a tough one, but I'd have to say Chicana Falsa by Michelle Serros, and I bring that book all the time. It might be out of print right now, I'm not sure, but so the whole title is Chicana Falsa and Other Stories of Disidentity in Oxnard. And Oxnard is a agricultural town in California. And so Michelle Serros, that book was the first book that I ever read that I saw myself in. So for that reason, it's my favorite. It has a poem in there about chicharrones, dead pig's revenge. And so it was like the first time I saw myself in a book and the first time I realized, oh my God, Mexicans right? Like it was just, and it's a funny book and it has short stories and poetry and I probably, yeah, one of my favorites.
Yeah. And what was the last book that you read by a person of color or a marginalized culture?
I just finished Layli Long Soldier's Whereas. It's a collection of poems, and it's a collection of poems that's in response to President Obama's apology to Native peoples that he did, I think it was like 2010, and he wrote this apology and he signed it, but he didn't, there were no Native people present, no tribes leaders present, tribal members present, and it was never read out loud, and I believe it was like stuck in some defense bill. It was kind of hidden, and so her collection, like the second half of it, is in response to, so it mimics the apology, it mimics that format, and so it's really, it mirrors that format, so it's really powerful, and I suggest everybody read it. Everybody read it, because just such a beautiful collection. If you have an opportunity to watch Layli read or go see her read, you should. Another poet I've made a fool out of myself in front of, Layli Long Soldier, and you can see her online read, and it's just the way she reads, it's quiet and powerful. It's just amazing. So I suggest everyone read that.
Yeah, I'll definitely be looking that one up.
Mm-hmm.
And our last question is, what are you currently working on?
So the second book for Ugly Cat and Pablo for this series. It's Ugly Cat and Pablo and the Lost Brother. And then I'm also working, finishing up a book for the Getty. So last year the Getty commissioned a graphic novel about Graciela Iturbide. She's a Mexican photographer. She's a photographer from Mexico. And she's like world renowned, like really famous. And it's just a biography on her, so it's nonfiction. And actually, the cover artist for my young adult novel, Gabby, A Girl in Pieces, he is the illustrator for that book. So Zeke Peña, he's a fabulous artist from El Paso, Texas. And so he's doing the illustrations, and I'm doing the text. And it's been quite a year, because I guess projects like that usually take 2 years. And this one, we did in under 1 year. So we're almost done with it. And people seem really happy, and Graciela has read it, and she seems to like it. And that's, I think, I was most nervous about, that the person I'm writing the biography for is still alive, and she is going to say whether she likes it or not. And so when it was sent to her, I was just like, oh man, like, what if she hates it? Then I just spent a year writing this, and she's gonna, but she seems to like it, and there was only a little bit of red when we got back the edits, so I was happy with that.
Well, I can't wait to read both of those projects.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isabela.
Thank you.